Meningitis, it's a term that sends fear into all of us. But do you really know what it is? Well, there are tissues that surround and protect your brain and spinal cord. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, these protective membranes can get inflamed, usually when an infection is present. Now, there are 5 different types of meningitis. One of them is parasitic meningitis. It's rare in developed countries. The CDC says this form of meningitis is caused by a brain infection from a parasite that usually enters the body through the nose. It's usually fatal. There's also non-infectious meningitis. It's not spread from person to person. The CDC says this can be caused by different health issues such as cancer, lupus, brain surgery, even a head injury. One of the most prevalent forms of meningitis is fungal. The CDC says it's usually acquired by inhaling fungal spores from the environment. People with certain medical conditions like diabetes or cancer are at higher risk of fungal meningitis. There's also viral meningitis. The CDC says it can be severe or even fatal depending on what's causing the infection, a person's age, and a person's immune system. But then there's bacterial meningitis. This form is usually severe and can cause serious complications such as brain damage, hearing loss, or learning disabilities. Well, most people with bacterial meningitis recover, but the CDC says it can also be deadly if an infected person does not receive immediate medical attention. For one baby boy, it was too late, and his mother, who just happened to be arrested hours after giving birth, caused quite a scare. Before her baby was 24 hours old, Gail Tom was discharged from the hospital, then booked into jail. Meanwhile, her baby contracted a rare form of bacterial meningitis and was rushed to another hospital where nurses were exposed to the contagious disease.
They're gloved up, they're masked, they have a gown on and things like that. And taking that many precautions and putting that many barriers between you and the bacteria actually will help you to not get it.
The baby died, so now officials are concerned about those who didn't take the same precautions, like the arresting officers and the jail staff. The health department is monitoring people who may have been exposed.
Normal symptoms are things such as a sensitivity to light, a fever, feeling very run down, vomiting. But this specific, like when you get into a baby that was this young, sometimes the fever may not present.
Experts say it's too early to tell if the baby contracted the infection from the mother. Officials at the jail say there is no concern there, and people at home shouldn't worry either.
I would say there's not a public health concern because this is one child. We did get hold of it very, very quickly, and we've identified those people who have the most contact and are at highest risk, and we've already gotten them treated. And by the way, the mother's arrest was related to drugs. Besides drugs, another thing that can leave people susceptible to meningitis is excessive alcohol use. And just like there are several types of meningitis, there are also different strains of bacterial meningitis. You may have been vaccinated for 4 of the 5 strains. The thing is, that vaccination probably did not include protection against meningitis B. The CDC says this strain of the infection packs the most powerful punch. So who is most at risk? College students need to be extra careful, as health experts say dorms can be a breeding ground for meningitis. It can be spread through coughing and sneezing and by dirty hands and belongings. You can even catch it by sharing a drinking glass or kissing. And as we heard moments ago, symptoms of meningitis may lead you to believe you have the flu, maybe you have a fever or you're throwing up. But again, meningitis can progress to a much more serious health condition, leading to permanent damage like hearing loss or death. Now, when it comes to treatment, bacterial meningitis responds well to antibiotics, but they must be started as soon as possible. The CDC says appropriate treatment of the common forms of the infection should reduce the risk of dying to below 15%, although the risk remains higher among young infants and the elderly. Jimmy?
Lisa, bacterial meningitis and even something called sepsis can both be life-threatening results of something called meningococcal disease. It's believed up to 1,200 people are infected with the disease every year. And get this, your child could be at risk. That's because 3 in 10 teenagers haven't yet received their first doses of the recommended meningococcal disease vaccination. It is sudden and it's severe, and it can lead to death within 24 hours. So knowledge is key when it comes to protecting yourself and your loved ones. Here to tell us more about it are Lynn Bozoff, president of the National Meningitis Association, and Jamie Shanbaum, who's the Paralympic gold medal cycling winner and a 25-year survivor of meningococcal septicemia. Lynn, ladies, both thank you so much for talking to us this afternoon. Let me ask you, Lynn, what is meningococcal disease?
Meningococcal disease is a deadly bacterial infection caused by a bacteria called Neisseria, and it's spread through the exchange of respiratory secretions, coughing, kissing, sneezing.
Yeah.
And once it gets in your body, you're almost fighting a losing battle. You're very lucky to survive and to survive unscathed. You know, I lost my 20-year-old son to this disease. He was a healthy 20-year-old pitcher on his college baseball team, honor student. His symptoms mimicked those of a virus or flu, and he was misdiagnosed. He had a headache, fever, nausea, vomiting. It wasn't the flu, it was meningitis, and he died. And after he died, we found out that a vaccine could have saved his life. And that's been my mission, to raise awareness of this disease, to raise awareness of the symptoms, and mostly that it's potentially vaccine preventable.
Right. Lynn, I am so sorry. Thank you for sharing your story. I know it's tough, but thank you. Jamie, you were diagnosed in college. What was that like?
It was a turn. It was a turn. I would say to get meningitis in college is something, one, that I wish no one goes through, and two, no one should be doing that. To learn how to walk and use prosthetics when you're 20 instead of being in class and doing your regular college years, I was going through recovering from meningitis. And I was in the hospital for 7 months in my sophomore year of college, where I dealt with amputations of all of my fingers and both of my legs below the knee. Wow. Definitely not something most sophomores in college do, but it's something that I went through, and it was very devastating to learn that it could have been prevented from a vaccine. Wow. And so that's why Linda and I are here today, to make sure that people know that there are ways to prevent this disease from occurring.
Jamie, how did you know you were sick? What were your symptoms?
Yes, you know, to answer how did I know I was sick, I mean, I was confused because I've never seen my body react the way it did. It started off being like, I need to take a nap. So I did, and then I woke up and realized that I was nauseous and vomiting a lot, and then I saw how progressive it became because my limbs were sensitive. Like anything cold that I touched was weird to me. Yeah. Or I was very cold. I couldn't retain any warmth throughout my limbs. Basically what was happening is that my blood became toxic, and my body was like, we can't have this blood flow anywhere else, so they stopped it naturally in my body, and that's why my body collapsed the way it did and why my limbs were sacrificed, because there was no blood flow to them.
So you are living proof that it is treatable.
Yes, I guess you can say that I am living proof that it is treatable. However, it can get misdiagnosed, and that's what happened with Lynn's son, and possibly with a lot of people throughout the world who has been misdiagnosed. It's very serious, and yet the only way to protect yourself is with this vaccine.
Lynn, Jamie, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. What incredible stories. Now, if you'd like to read more about what Lynn and Jamie just had to talk about, all you have to do is go to our website, themarvelife.com, and click on the show tab. All right, now let's stay on your health just for a moment. Getting admitted to the hospital is bad enough. You want to do everything you can to avoid a return trip. Up next on Delmarva Life, how PRMC is making sure patients come home healthy and stay home healthy. Well, staying in the best physical shape possible is a way to stay healthy, and training like the Navy SEALs can help you get there. A little later on, how you can get a taste of the physical obstacles they face. It may sound brutal, but you know, it really does look like a lot of fun. And something else that you're going to want to be a part of is tonight's crime scene investigation. A very famous face guest stars, and we're going to get a preview in just a little bit. But first, we just talked about the importance of vaccinations. Dr. Oz has more on why you should not shun your children's shots.
Hi, I'm Dr. Oz. Measles, mumps, polio. Until vaccines, these diseases claim thousands of lives annually. There's been a lot of anxiety about vaccines. However, their benefits outweigh the risks. When children don't get vaccines, it not only endangers their health, but also others in the community. Don't shun those shots.